I'm glad to see Kevin. I'm glad to see Mary Catherine and Lorena and Tina are joining us on Zoom. Good to have you all.
Oh, hey, Mary Catherine. She finished her internship with us, everyone.
Yeah.
I came back because it's just so interesting. So I love learning from
Well, we're glad that you joined us. Are you in Wilmington?
Thank you. Yes, I'm currently in Wilmington.
Okay.
Today was our first day of class.
Oh, okay. I hope it went well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, my son and my youngest daughter, their first day of class was yesterday.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So Alan, I haven't figured it out. Do you see something on there where I can also go live to your page?
Maybe I can do it. Let me figure it out.
What did you say the term was called?
The page?
No, there was a term where you said I can, is it double live or something like that?
You know, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out another time.
Okay. All right. Let me get us started. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Hey there.
Let me...
Video's not showing.
Get my Zoom page shared here. All right. I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know we're still waiting on a few people, but I am going to go ahead and get started so that we can try to end on time. We have quite a bit of information to get through, but we should still be able to get through it all. I will bypass introductions at the beginning today just so that we get through the information. But for anyone that's new with us, welcome. This is Hustle Winston-Salem in conjunction with Foresight Tech, Small Business Center, and Flywheel Co-working. We do a weekly marketing session titled Marketing Outside the Box. And with this session, we tend to do monthly series. And this month we are doing a series on email marketing. We're calling it $1 Million Marketing. We've had a guest presenter with us for the past 2 weeks, and she was intending to be with us today. Unfortunately, something did come up. She informed me on Monday something came up where she could no longer be with us. And because I love you all, instead of canceling or not coming prepared, I put together something. So hopefully it's as effective and informational as what Dominique, or as she shared with some of us that stayed on the call a little longer last week, Dominique is how her mom says her name. So hopefully it's as engaging and helpful as what she has shared with us thus far. I believe she may be with us next week, but if not, you'll have me again. So hi. So with that said, I am Magalia Sims for any new person here, and I am the Interim Executive Director at Hustle Winston-Salem. And I'm excited about this series. And for if you did miss the first 2 weeks, or for any reason you plan to miss next week, we will send the information out to everyone that has registered throughout the month. So you will have access to this information. Just so you know, the first 2 weeks, week one, we touched a little bit on building your email list. So we talked about not just list building, but maintaining your list as well as various email platforms. So that's what we focused on during the first week. And last week, we focused primarily on your audience. We talked about identification, insights, segmentation, and personalization of your audience. And today, as you can see on my very happy and bright screen, we are focusing on testing 1, 2, 3, and we're going to talk about the various ways that you can test your email marketing strategy, as well as testing the results and using those results as data. throughout your email marketing, your email testing and marketing plan. Okay. So let's get started. The first thing you see there on that screen, it's best to test the test and test the rest. I don't think I can say that enough. When it comes to email marketing, there are two key questions that you want to start in. That first question that you see there on the screen, it's probably the most important part as far as when you're talking about testing the information for email marketing, but you can't really get to that without answering the second question. So if you don't know what it is and if you don't know what is working and what isn't working with your email campaigns, how can you make them any better? But before you can get to that, you have to define success for you. Because then if you don't define success, how would you know that you've succeeded or that you failed? So as we talk about that, no matter what type of business you have, you want people to open and interact with your emails. That's the goal. So you want to focus on metrics such as open rates, which means, do people care about your emails? You want to focus on click-through rates. Are readers engaged with your email message or your call to action? And you want to also focus on unsubscribe rates. Do people even care? Do they even want to hear from you? So those are some of the things we'll delve into today. And I apologize if you do have any questions. Let me make sure the chat isn't disabled like it was last week. Are you all able to text in the chat today? I know last week we had a situation where you couldn't, and I didn't realize that until halfway through. So yes, I think I see some chat function going on. Yes, okay, perfect. So I'm not that focused on the chat. So if you do have a question throughout the presentation, feel free to unmute yourself. If you're in a position where you cannot, Alan, and I'll ask Mary Catherine while she's here with us, just let me know if something comes up that I am not seeing through the chat and on Facebook. Thank you so much. All right, so let's get to it as well. So before we jump into some of those metrics that I discussed, let's talk about a few reasons that email testing is essential. Today, as modern marketers, and I'm going to call all of you marketers because honestly, we're all marketing all the time, whether you know it or not. As modern marketers, there are a million demands on our time. And when it comes to testing your email marketing campaigns, it normally ends up at the bottom of the list of things that are important. Don't do that. That's a fail, fail, fail. And we'll talk about some of the practices you can put into place to ensure that it's not the last thing you think about. So why is email testing essential as part of your email marketing campaign? The first thing that I want to point out is one of the most important parts, which is to emphasize that creative content is one of the hardest things to measure. So testing your email marketing strategy provides you a way to test your creative work measurably, make it trackable, and to have some data-driven information as it relates to your creative work. So if that relates to the subject lines, for example, or whether you use a red button or a blue button or whatever the case may be, sometimes that's really hard to track. But in email, it's one of the easiest things that you can test to see how things work. And we'll talk about some of the strategies you can use in doing that. But that's one of the main reasons it's really important to try to test your audience and your market through your email marketing, because that's really hard versus testing it on some other platforms like social media. Email makes it the easiest. I think Dominique shared that with us during week 1. When it comes to email marketing, it's the best form of testing your audience. The next thing when you're talking about why email testing is essential, testing provides measurable proof. So being able to test your email components and then using that information to continually improve performances, it provides you with a proof of concept, or better known as a rationale for your email marketing budget. That's really important. Pulling a number out of your hat, it's a waste of your money sometimes if you don't have a strategy around it. But by testing your audience and testing your recipients, you you're able to say, okay, it makes more sense for me to put more money into this type of marketing, and it helps you set your budget. So it provides you with the proof for the rationale behind putting X amount of dollars behind a particular campaign. And then finally, when you're talking about why email testing is essential, it's the quickest way for you to yield fast improvement in your marketing strategies. With most email platforms, results can be gathered really, really quickly. It allows you to implement change fairly quickly. And most people do this through A/B testing, which is the most normal form of email marketing testing. And that's really just comparing one way versus the other when we're talking about A/B testing campaign. And a good way, a good example of this is essentially you could send out a test email to a sample audience in the morning of a particular day. By that afternoon, you can evaluate the results of that email strategy, and then the next day know what you need to send to your entire audience instead of just that test audience. You're almost never going to have another opportunity outside of email marketing to get results that fast to know what to do. And I'll use an example to make that clear. Let's say you're trying to decide if you want to send an email where you have emojis in the subject line or not, right? If emojis are effective or not in your subject line. You can essentially set your testing to go to a sample size of people with the emojis at the same time. You want to send it out same time. Everything's the same except that one factor. Send it out. One group of people receive it with the emojis. One group receives it without the emojis that morning. Come back at about 4 o'clock that afternoon, see the results of it. And whichever one has more interaction is what you would probably want to send to your mass audience the next day or the next 2 days or whenever you were initially intending to send it out. So that's just an example of how quickly you can get results from your email marketing testing strategies. Okay. So let's talk about some of those testing best practices that I mentioned. And these are just 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, these are just 6 that I am mentioning. There are other best practices that you can continue to do to make your email marketing testing process the norm, but these are 6 good ways to get started. So the first, and you'll hear me say this probably 3 more times on today's session, know your goal. If you don't know the goal, everything else doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Like you can just stop. And that's more than email marketing. That's with everything, as we know. But as it specifically relates to your testing, know what you are testing. Those first 2 questions that I asked on the first slide, it really speaks to that. If you don't know what it is, if you don't know what is and isn't working with your emails, how can you make them better? That was the first question. But the most important question, as I stated, is if you don't define success, how do you know what you've succeeded or failed at? In order to define success, you have to have the goal to know what you're trying to reach. So the first thing is have a goal, and that goal will help determine your winning criteria for each test that you do. So that's number 1 for best practices. The next thing as it relates to best practices is test one component at a time. And then you want to know the rule of 2 as well. So when I say test one component at a time, let me be correct in the industry. You could, test one component at a time. You could theoretically test more than one component at a time. You can do that. I'm not telling you that this is the rule and this is what you have to do. However, my advice, Magali's advice, in order for you to make this a habit, make this a practice to get really good results as you start your testing process, start off by testing one component of a campaign at a time. And I'll give you an example of that in just a minute. But while I say test one component at a time, you need to understand what the rule of 2 is. So where was I? Okay, so when you're starting out, focus on a single variable testing. The golden rule, when we're talking about knowing the rule of 2, is only testing 2 variants of that one component at a time. So let me make sure I don't confuse you. If you decide that you want to test buttons versus links, right? As far as your call to action. So the test is your call to action, and you wanted to test whether you do buttons in your email to get more engagement, or whether you just have the words linked to wherever you want them to go. If that's what you're testing, that's the only thing you want to test in that particular campaign. You don't also want to test the best time to send out the email. You don't also want to test the graphics in that email. Like that's not going to make you successful. So test one component, but only 2 things within that one component. Back to the example I just used. You don't want to test the button, the link, and maybe a banner. You've now made it 3 things. You're confusing yourself. You're confusing your results. The golden rule is 2 variants at a time. Does that make sense? And I can't see you, so hopefully you're nodding. I don't know where you all went. I don't know what happened, but hopefully everybody's still there. So that's number 2. The third thing that I want to point out when you want email testing best practices, I'm going to jump first to the commit to at least 1 test per campaign. When you're building and testing your strategies, it can become very time consuming to think because every email is considered a campaign. Every time I send out a campaign, I have to test something. That can drive you crazy, right? But if you're doing what I just shared about 1 component at a time, and if the email you're sending out is the same email and you're just sending it out maybe once or twice a week, then no, you don't have to, that's still the same campaign that you're sending out. So that's okay that you're not changing or whatever testing, but you want to test at least 1, you want to do at least 1 test per campaign, because that helps you make this a habit. It helps you become a regular part of your process, and you'll understand more why as I continue to talk throughout this presentation. And it also, if you commit to that 1 test per campaign, it becomes more manageable rather than waiting till like the end of the year to decide you want to do the test and become overwhelmed by, oh my goodness, I don't know what my audience like, what my audience don't like, why am I not getting engagement? Trying to do it all at one time becomes beyond overwhelming. Even if you have a strong marketing team, it's overwhelming to try to do that all at once. So it's best to build it into your strategy, have it part of your regular marketing campaigns, and you'll find that it's easier for you to stay on track, and it allows you to not let testing slip through the tracks when you get too busy. Then I'm going to jump back to creating a testing calendar. This goes hands in hand with what I say. Just like you have a content. Yep.
I was going to say, before we do that, Rick Jordan has a couple of questions. Rick,
Okay.
Would you like to ask them, or do you want me to read them?
I can ask them, but I when I was just looking at your sheet, I think you might be getting to it. So like I send 2 emails out a week, one on Tuesdays, one on Thursdays. I do them based on, you know, something I read said nonprofits, it's good to send them out on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 o'clock. So I've been doing that, but then, you know, is that really true for my people? So if I have 100 people on my email list, which is about what I have, 118 right now, you know, what do I do? What's the right number to say this is a test? Like 10 people, 25? You know, what do you think is the good number to say that's a test?
Yeah, we are going to get to that with the suitable sample size in just a minute, but I do want to speak on something that we're not going to get to. I don't think we're going to get to. So I will answer that second question for you when I get to the last point on this slide, Rick. But the question about, you read something that said a nonprofit should send emails out on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock. I'll say this, there are a lot of studies out there where people took the time to do a lot of testing on things. So it's not that they're incorrect, but everything, and I'm sure this study said this somewhere in there, everything is catered to your specific audience. And that's why Dominique took so much time focused on audience last week. You have to look at your analytics, look at your insights on whatever email platform you're using and figure out okay, most people are reading my emails when? So it might not be Tuesdays at 9 o'clock. And if you're not sure, if you're only doing it Tuesdays at 9 o'clock and whatever day they're telling you and you're not sure, you need to test something else, change those times, change those days. And we'll get to the sample size in just a second. Does that help answer the first part of your question?
It does, thanks.
Okay. Was there another question, Alan?
No, that was, well, Rick had more than one, but I think you got it covered.
Okay.
That was all I had so far.
Okay. So creating a testing calendar, that goes hand in hand in committing to at least one test per campaign. If you have a testing calendar, it's easy to keep track, just like you have a content calendar, just like you have a funding calendar, whatever other calendars you have a social media calendar, all of that is part of your marketing campaign. Testing needs to be the same way. Don't play testing. Don't play it for a fool. Don't underplay it. Don't do any of that. It's important to your overall strategy. So by having a calendar, you're doing this work up front. Once again, streamlining that process, simplifying your testing results when you get it, so that you can have time on your calendar already. Like, this is the day that I'm going to analyze my data, analyze the results, keep record of it, use that information, put it in one place, put it in a user-friendly document in case I need to talk to potential funders, or if I want to partner with somebody in my business, or if I want to sell ads on my website, they can understand this is the type of engagement I'm getting. So all of this can help you, but you want to make it part of your regular process. So be consistent with your delivery day and time. Unless you are actually testing delivery day or time. That's the only exception to that. And it's okay if you're testing it and you're not quite sure yet. But once you figure that out with specific campaigns, make sure your test and control emails go out at roughly the same time or close to the same time. So let me make sure I was clear about that. So your test sample size, let's just say you send your test emails out Mondays at 3 p.m. That's when you're testing something, but you want to send your actual emails out on Thursdays. Try to stick with that 3 p.m. time. Or even better, do them the same day. Like, let's just say you want to do them both on that Monday to test Mondays. Send them out Mondays, send your test email that you're wanting to test, whatever it is that you're testing in that email, send that out at 3, and then send your actual email out at 3 so that you have that information to compare at a later time to say, oh, I noticed in my test email, I got more engagement or more click-throughs or more conversion versus whatever it is that you're testing. And we'll talk about the various things that you can test. So we'll get through that section as well. I won't leave that out. And then to Rick's question, you want to use a suitable sample size. And hopefully this link works here for us. You want to, this is just an example. And when you get this presentation, it'll be linked to it, but you can Google sample size calculator, and there are many out there. This is just one of the ones that I found, and it's free. But what they suggest, and this is true for marketing of all types, and for sample size of all types, this is not just in the marketing world. What they suggest is that the larger your sample size, the larger your audience, the smaller your sample size can be. The smaller your audience, the larger your sample size needs to be. So you want to also, let me make sure that's clear. That may have been confusing. If your audience, for example, if your audience is 10,000 people or more, then sending tests to 5% of those people may be okay. But if your audience is 200 people, you might want to send to 10 to 20% of your sample size, of your audience. You might want to make your sample size 10 to 20% of those 200. And this link that we were just at, it goes into more detail why you would want a larger size for a small sample, why you would want a larger sample size for a smaller audience. So we're not going to get into all the whys today, but that's just the gist of it. If you have more people, then you need to test less, and you kind of need to determine what more is. You might need to do a little research in your industry. With the example that Rick gave us, I think he said he has about 115 or something like that. Let's just go with 150. If you have about 150 people, I would suggest testing anywhere between 10 to 20% of those people as your sample size. And that sample size calculator, you can literally put the exact number in, and it'll give you a sample size number that they suggest, okay? And again, you don't have to use that particular sample size calculator that I have. You can use anyone that you want. Most of them are free, so you don't have to think about it. The other thing when we're talking about sample size that I want you to think about is use a random sample of your audience. Don't handpick who you want to sample size with. You want it to be random because you don't want to introduce any unintentional biases, okay? You don't want to, because if you send it to Rick, if Rick sends Magali a email intentionally, 99.99% of the time, I'm going to open that email because I know Rick and I'm going to read what Rick wants to say to me, as opposed to letting your system or you just deciding these are the people I'm choosing. Like, don't give it too much thought, because you're going to introduce biases that you don't want to impact your testing process. Okay. So here's the thing. You can test virtually any element of an email. These are just some examples, but you can test just about any part of your email that you want to test. And you might ask yourself, where do I begin? It goes back to what I said, your objectives, your goals. Figure out your goals, and that will help you decide where you need to start. What's most important to you will help you understand what you need to test first, what you need to test often. So for example, if your goal is you want to increase open rates, if that's your goal, then you're going to want to focus on email subject line testings. And that varies from the subject line itself, from the pre-header to all of the pieces and elements that someone will see before they open your email. That's if open rates were important to you. But let's just say your goal is to increase click-through rates or to downstream conversions, then the choices broaden from there. So what I suggest is that you start fairly simple with this process. Start with something simple and straightforward that you can get quick wins without a lot of effort. A great example of this, I think I already mentioned this, but the color or placement of a call to action button. That's a great example. Let's just say you want to test if green call to action buttons work better than red call to action buttons, because call to action leads people to your website to purchase a ticket or to register for your seminar or whatever, to buy your product. Whatever that call to action button is leading them to do. For you, let's just say that's the most important part of your marketing strategy. So for you, that matters, right? And you've already read all these studies and everything that says, you know, we know that color psychology, which is also one of the marketing outside the box things we did last year, those things matter. You've done the research and you're just down to trying to figure out between red and green and you just don't know. Test it. And that's that one component that you're going to test in that one email. It's simple. Once you get the hang of testing and analyzing your results and all of that, because remember, you're doing this with just about every campaign, you're doing something, you can then graduate to more multi-level email testing options, meaning that's when you can graduate into testing more things, but you never have to graduate to that. It's okay to focus on one component per email, or per campaign. If you choose to, some of the more in-depth things that you'll look into would be maybe trying to decide if you need to change your email design, or if you need to change your messaging, or if you need to change the type of incentives you offer in emails. But those get a little bit more trickier as you go through the testing process. I'm not going to go through all of these listed on this slide here, but did anyone have any question in particular about any one of them? Did anything catch your eye that you wanted to ask a question about, or are you fairly okay with these? I'm gonna.
This is Rich again. I've got another question.
Okay.
So when you're doing these tests, like I use MailChimp,
Mhm.
but I've never done a test. Does MailChimp have or whatever you're using, does it have a way to do that? Or do you have to manually count out 10 email addresses and send those and then count 10 more or whatever your count is?
They have a way to do it. Most email platforms, this is one of the integrations and automation things that they can do for you. You just have to go into the backend and select it. Also, depending on the platform, they vary based on the level that you're paying for. So the free version doesn't always have everything that the paid version would have. I will say though, MailChimp and I believe Constant Contact, both in the free versions, they offer some testing. To what extent, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there is some testing offered at the free level, just not all of them. Okay. And the most valuable one that you'll notice that I think all of them offer is A/B testing. Once again, some of them offer it for free. Actually, I don't know if any of them offer it for free. And A/B testing it tests all of these various factors still. But as far as choosing your random things or your random people, it can do that for you. So you want to pay attention when you're choosing a plan, when it lists all of those various things that comes with your email marketing platform. And you can always just kind of go into the details and figure out what you want.
Thank you.
Yep. So one thing that I want to point out on this slide particularly is right here where it says dynamically customized content. A few platforms, and I think HubSpot may be one of them. I'm not sure if all of them do this. A few platforms offer dynamic content features where, and an example of a dynamic content feature is where they can send your email content out and different people, depending on factors that they've collected throughout your email marketing campaigns, different people will see different things when they receive your email. Meaning, because this particular group, this segmented group, normally their reaction to your emails, they've done really well with clicking on links, while these people prefer to click on a button, or these people like more words, and these people seem to like when you have more graphics. Some of these platforms offer that dynamic customized content where it'll do the work for you. You would just click that option, dynamic content, and it would break your email strategy up for you. So it's really worth it. And all of these things are important. All of these things listed on this page, it's all important as you go back to what the name of this series is. It's Millionaire Email Marketing, and we're focused on $1 million email marketing strategies, because all of these things, they might take some work in testing and researching all that. All of these things impact your bottom line. If you do these right, especially when we're talking about your conversion, if your conversion is to sell a product or to sell a service, you do these things right and you segment your groups right, many times those convert to sales. And as small business owners and entrepreneurs, that's the goal. We want you to be profitable. So yeah, I'll move on from this slide if there aren't any specific questions about it. If it decides to move on with me. All right, so this is probably, after goal setting, as we talk about email testing, this is probably the most critical component to your email testing plan. You have to keep doing it. You absolutely have to. Just because one type of layout worked one time for one message, for one particular audience, doesn't mean it's going to always work that way. Doesn't mean it's going to always be your winner. So once again, it's a pain in the neck. I know it, you know it, but it's necessary, because too often time, we as marketers, we as business owners, we have a one and done mentality with our email marketing strategies. And when it comes down to testing your emails, You need to have a test and test again approach, because many factors can influence your results. And factors as, it's crazy the things that will impact the results. The time of year, the weather outside. Why would that matter to your email strategy? But it does. You just never know. That's why you have to constantly test. It's an ongoing process. So I can't stress that enough. After goal setting, this is the one. If you don't leave today's session with anything else, when I'm talking about testing, those are the two things: your goals, your objective and your goals, and it is not a one and done process. You don't just do it one time. You have to constantly do it. Okay. All right. So what we're going to get into now is kind of just getting into the information as it relates to some of the metrics and KPIs that you should track. We're going to talk a little bit about 8. I think there's 8 listed here. Metrics. I won't go into too much detail for the sake of time, but if you do have questions about them, just let me know. Just stop me and say, hey, I have a question about that. So the first thing here is your click-through rate. I've mentioned that a lot today, and assuming everybody knew what it is, but I'm just going to tell you here what it is, and that's just the percentage of email recipients who have clicked on one or more links contained in your email. So that's basically if people click on something in your email, that's what your email is testing. What they're clicking, the percentage of people that's clicking, things of that nature, okay? And if you look at that calculation, we won't go into the calculation or the examples, but if you look at that calculation, you see it says total clicks or unique clicks. If this is something you decide to do on your own, and once again, most email platforms will do this for you if you have the option where they pay to do this for you. But you see it says or, and I want to point out that either one works. The total clicks or the unique clicks, it really doesn't matter. The key thing here is that you use the same approach consistently when you're looking to test the click-through rate. As long as that approach is consistent, that formula works with either click, meaning if me, Magali, clicks that one link 15 times versus 15 different people clicking that link. That's what it means by total clicks or unique clicks, okay? And the click-through rate, most time in the world of marketing, you'll see it, people just put CTR, the acronym CTR. Anybody that you talk to that does your marketing, or if you start talking to people as it relates to your marketing, or when you talk to marketing experts, if you were to ask them what's the most important metric, I'm willing to bet money, and I'm not a betting woman, but I'm willing to bet money that the first answer that you're gonna get is that the click-through rate is the most important metric for them. I'm almost positive about that. And that's because it lets you easily calculate performance from everybody you send an email to. It's such an easy way. And it's the most frequently used A/B test in metric testing, okay? So how valuable is the click-through rate? A click-through rate is a very important metric for all marketers, as it gives you direct insight into how many people on your list are engaging with your content and interested in learning about your brand or your business or your offer or whatever the case is in your email. So that's the importance of the click-through rate, and that's the value that it brings to you. So next, let's talk. Yes.
Magali, I'm sorry. Can you define unique clicks? I'd heard that term before, but I do know what it is. I just forgot.
Unique clicks mean it's a different person that clicked it, or let me not say person, a different location. So if I clicked it in my email, but then I also later clicked it, if I clicked it on my laptop somewhere, then I also later clicked it on my phone, the system, the technology reads that as unique clicks versus if I clicked it twice in my email.
Okay, I don't think I did have the right understanding of that, so thank you.
Okay, no problem. So now let's talk a little bit about your conversion rate. And if click-through rate was number one on that answer, if you're selling a product or a service or getting people to register for something, your conversion rate would probably be the number 2 answer. And your conversion rate is basically the percentage of people who click on a link within the email and completed whatever desired action. So whether that action was to fill out a lead generation form or to purchase your product or whatever the case may be, that's when it's considered a conversion. Not like they clicked on it and they completed it. So the key thing with conversion rate is most times it needs to be connected to either your your website or wherever you sell your product or wherever it is that you're sending. That's where integration becomes important. It needs to have a connection so that your email platform is still tracking that. It's still tracking, oh, they clicked the link, oh, and they purchased. That's how it determines the conversion rate. And that's important because it starts to tell you, depending on whatever it is that you're testing, whatever it is that you decided to test, oh, more people click the green button to purchase versus the red button. Is that something you need to continue to test to see if it continues to be that way? You might test it for 3 months before you realize, yes, green button would work for me. I can go with this. And then even after that, maybe a year later, you might need to test it again and make sure the green buttons are still working. So it's an ongoing process. So what's the value of the conversion rate? If your goal is to generate leads, then conversion rates are incredibly important as they show you how successful your newsletters are. So yeah, if you're looking to make more sales, if you're looking to get more leads, conversion rates is probably going to be your number 1. So once again, the value is based on what your goals are. Let's talk a little bit next about your bounce rate. So what is your bounce rate? It's the percentage of your total emails sent that could not be successfully delivered to whoever you sent it to. There are 2 kinds of bounce rates: hard bounces and soft bounces. Soft bounces are the result of a temporary problem with the valid email address. So for example, the person's mailbox might be full, or something might be wrong with their server. And in those cases, sometimes the server may hold those emails for delivery once whatever is wrong with that person's email has cleared up. So if they have an inbox that's too full, because believe it or not, there are still some email platforms where your inbox can be too full and no longer receive email until this person checks it. In that case, what can happen sometimes, most times, the server will hold that email until the problem clears up. But to be safe, you may just want to try resending your soft email bounces after a certain amount of hours and or days. And your email platforms generally always tell you, it don't send you an email unless you have it set up to send you an email. You go into your insights and it'll tell you you have 52 soft bounces, and you'll click that link and you'll see who the soft bounces are. And the really good ones will tell you why it's a soft bounce. It'll tell you their inbox was full, something was wrong with their server, whatever the case may be. And so you could decide whether you want to individually send all of those or just ask your system to resend the soft bounces. Now the hard bounces, those are typically a result of an invalid, closed, or non-existent email address. So if somebody gave you the wrong email address, or if you input something wrong within that person's email address, or if the email address no longer exists, you'll get a hard bounce, which means no matter how many times you tell your system to send it, it's never going to work. It's just not going to happen. What's recommended is that you do check your hard bounces regularly. And what you should do is immediately remove hard bounces from your email list, because what happens with ISPs, and ISPs are internet service providers, what happened with those are they track your bounce rates. They track how often your bounce rates happen, and then they track the number of bounces that you have. And what happens is if you have too many of those, as you can see, as I explained under the value part, if you have too many of those, the internet service providers will now start to think your email is spam. And what happens, the people that are valid valid email addresses, because ISPs are reading that as spams, are starting to see it as spam. Instead of sending your message to the inbox, it's going to send your message to the junk mail. And your person, your designated recipient, may never even see that email because it went to their spam. So how you can stop that from happening is you need to clean up your hard bounces regularly, make it a habit. I would suggest once a month. Just clean up your hard bounces, okay? And this kind of ties a little bit into what's next, which is your list growth rate. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's the rate at which your email list is growing or you're losing people. It could be both. So I think I mentioned click-through rates may be number one, call to action, and click-through rates is number one because it determines engagement. Call to action is number two because, I mean, not call to action, conversion is number two because those call to actions determine if you're making sales, if you're reaching your lead generation or whatever the case may be. This would be number three. If I was keeping a running list, your list growth rate would be number three. You always want to keep tabs on your list growing and the people you're losing. Of course, you don't really want to lose people. Of course, you always want to focus on the growth list as far as extending your reach, expanding your audience, or positioning yourself to be a thought leader within your industry based on whatever you're sending out. But as you see under the value here, and believe it or not, there's a natural decay of your email marketing list. And it said that our email audience, we lose about 22.5% of them every year, one way or another. And what that means is it's more important than ever to pay attention to growing your subscriber list and keeping it at a healthy size. This truly ties into week one of what Dominique talked about with us, as far as making sure that we're constantly still encouraging people to join our mailing list and things of that nature, because in a given year, 22.5% is a lot. They're anticipating you're going to lose that. So you want to make sure that you're constantly still building, even though we know that you're going to lose some people. You're actively building, you're actively still putting in your email blast, subscribe here, or whatever the case may be on your Instagram or your other marketing platforms. You're still reminding people to engage with your email, because once again, as we shared during week one, this is the most effective way of communicating with your audience. It's been proven time and time and time again. Email marketing is the way. Okay. So hopefully you got that as it relates to your list growth rate. Let's talk about sharing and forwarding your email. Just like you want to have it out there that you want people to join your email list in your actual emails. A lot of people don't do this, and I'm guilty of not doing this often either. A lot of the email platforms, you have an option where you can add a share this button or share this link somewhere in your email, and it can share it on different social media platforms, or it has an option to forward to a friend. You want to take advantage of that. If that's a test that you're wanting to see, you want to take advantage of it regardless of whether that's your testing or not. But that's a test that you can pay attention to and run. And the importance of that is it helps you keep a careful eye on sharing your rates to discover which types of articles and or offers that get shared the most. And you can use that insight in planning future email campaigns. It's not going to track if I just forward my email. It's going to track me clicking that forward to a friend button. So I want to make sure I make that clear. If I decided to just forward my email to Alan, my email system isn't tracking that. But if I click the forward to a friend link or button in the email, then it will capture that. And this is a great way to also help your list growth that we just talked about. This plays a part in helping that, because if it's tracking that you're forwarding it to someone and it's tracking who it's forwarded to, you now have an opportunity to invite that person to join your email list. You can figure out the strategy behind how you want to do that, but you now have more people who could potentially join your list. Also, when they share it on social networks, you can kind of now see who's reading it. and you have an opportunity to grow that list. So your sharing and forwarding rate is still important, and it still matters, okay? I think we just have 2 more of these to go through. What's our time? Okay, we still have a little bit of time. So your overall return on investment, total revenue divided by total spend. ROI is the same no matter where you go. It's the same no matter where you are. What I will share about your overall ROI, what you see on the screen here, as far as the calculation, this is the most basic formula to calculate it, but there are several ways to approach calculating the ROI for your email campaigns. So depending on your type of business, you may prefer to use a different one. And once again, Google is your best friend. Just Google ROI for your industry or for your type of business. And if you think that the formula or whatever added insight they put for the email marketing ROI is better for you, then you do that. But the concept remains the same, but they may add in other factors that pertain specifically to your industry. So I do want to point that out, that the formula you see is the most basic formula calculation for it. So let's see. As far as the value of your ROI, I think it's almost self-explanatory, but those questions that you see there, how many of each of these types of leads did you generate via email marketing? How does it translate to potential revenue? How does it translate to actual revenue? These are the type of metrics that will help you show real value in your email marketing channel. And these are the types of things that drives real intangible results. And I don't want you to sell yourself short if you think, oh, well, I'm not in an industry where my ROI matters. It always matters. Your return on investment always matters. If you spend $1 on something, you want to make sure that it was worth it. Okay. And honestly, when you're thinking about scaling your business and expanding, it matters. You don't know what opportunities come your way because you have strong return on investment. Those are the key things that makes the difference sometimes if you're looking for an investor, for example. Those are the type of things that they care about. Or if you're just looking, I think I used the example already, if you're looking to do more ad sales on your website or on your product sales sites, whatever the case may be, it's almost like influencer marketing in a sense. If they notice that you have great ROI, they're more than likely to say, yeah, I'm going to pay this business to promote my book on their ad. So, Rick, I'm thinking of your business, for example. If you have great ROI, you have an opportunity to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Bible app, for example. Like the Bible app would be a great possible ad partnership on your website, right? So it'd be a great opportunity if they're like, oh, wow, he has amazing ROI. I want my app advertised on his website so that we can reach more people, whatever the case may be. So you just never know the value of your ROI and how far that can take you in your business. So never discount it. Oops, wrong way. Okay. You're going to hear me say something that most people don't say about open rate because so many people care about open rate. And it's great. Open rates, they're great as far as you need people to open your email because there's no way they can get to the click through or the conversion or any of that if they don't open the email. But the fact of the matter is that open rate is a very misleading metric. And most people don't realize that. And ironically, it's the one metric that people spend the most time paying attention to. Okay? It's the one that people spend so much time on, focused on their open rate. Because again, you want people to open the email. So I get it. It's kind of one of those catch-22s. But here's the thing you need to know about open rates. As far as the way email systems calculate them, it's only counted as open if the recipient actually receives the images that's embedded in that message. That's why you notice sometimes email systems ask you if you want to send a text only version. Well, it's because a large percentage of email users by default have image blocking enabled in their emails. I know I'm one of them. I'm really good with emails, so I will click show images if I want to see everything in the email. But by default, a lot of our emails don't show us an image and we have to click something to see all the images in the email. Open rate does not count it open if I open that email but did not decide to see all the images. It's not considered an open email. So it's automatically misleading you as far as your open rate. So you're not getting the true amount or the true report on who opened or did not open your email. So as much time as we spend on that, I kind of want to say, I don't think it's that important. But where you can find value in your open rate is you can use it as a comparative metric. So you can compare the open rates from last week to this week, assuming you sent it to the same people. And that can give you some insight on any variable that you may have changed in a somewhat controlled environment. So, I mean, there's value in that, of course, like going back to the example I used earlier today, whether you decided to use emojis or not, that's a way to kind of compare open rates. But again, I don't think they're that accurate. And I just told you how they calculate it. So there's no formula behind it. That's just how they calculate it. People see that image or they don't, and that determines it. So if you do decide to send, if you choose the option in your email platform to send something that does not have images, then your open rate is probably likely very accurate. So there's that.
Before you leave that, Magdalene, let me ask a question. First of all, let me thank you for clarifying that the open rate has to do with people downloading the pictures. Okay? One of the questions that I have, and I think you may have alluded to it, is on an email, when I get a newsletter, I can scroll through and see it without clicking on the email to open it up broader. You know what I mean? So let's say I did download the pictures, but I never opened it up broader. That would count toward the open rate, right?
Yes, it does count towards the open rate. Yeah.
Okay. So I have another question though.
Okay.
We have this thing with Constant Contact called social share. So our newsletter is not only emailed to the people on the email distribution list, but it goes to the Small Business Owner page in Facebook. And I've often wondered, are we doing ourselves a disservice? Because when it's in social media, you're not opening an email. So if Marianne chooses to read the newsletter from social media rather than opening her email, did I hurt my open rate?
Yeah, so the answer to that question is no, you're not doing yourself a disservice, and no, you're not hurting your open rate, because what happens is it's still, it being your email platform, it's still calculating an open when they click that email and go and read through it. So you're not doing yourself a disservice if somebody clicks on it and go through it. It's still calculating that as far as your open rate.
All right, well, here's the next question related to that. Number one, I love what you said. So that tells me I should still keep sending it to social media.
Yes.
But let's say Marlene isn't on our email list, but Marlene looks at it on social media. Does her looking at it have anything to do with does it impact my open rate?
Yes, it will. Well, let me rephrase that. It'll impact your engagement. It'll impact your click-through rate. If she clicks on anything, it will not impact your actual open rate.
Because she's not somebody I send it to.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So if you look at your insights, you'll see where it's giving you email data, but it also gives you your social media data. Yeah. Was there another question? We only have like one more slide actually after this. Was there another question? I thought I saw something come up, but no? Okay. So really quickly about your unsubscribe rate. And this is the percentage of people that actually click unsubscribe from your email. Almost like the open rate, it's not a reliable picture of the health of your email list. And the reason I say that is most people, if they're tired of receiving your emails or they no longer want to be bothered with your brand, they're not going to go through the trouble of clicking unsubscribe. they're just going to stop opening your emails. They're just going to delete them. So it doesn't really give you a clear picture of how many people are no longer engaged with your emails. Okay. That's why you want to keep an eye out for your unengaged subscribers. Like if they haven't unsubscribed, but you notice that they're not opening anything, they're not clicking anything, you may need to figure out a strategy behind your unsubscribed users. The value behind unsubscribe rate is that although your unsubscribe rate doesn't directly relate to your goals, checking on it monthly is what I suggest is helpful for you calculating your overall list growth rate. That list growth rate that I told you was number 3 on the important list. People that's unsubscribing helps you also recognize like, okay, I'm losing way more than this 22%. I'm now at 30% of my people leaving and I'm not growing my list rate. So you might need to figure that out. So once again, it may not impact your directly to your goals. It's still a metric that you want to pay attention to for your overall strategy. And then the last thing that I just want to say today is I can't tell you how many times people collect all this data, they know all this information, and they do absolutely positively nothing with it. What was the point? Why did you waste your time doing all this test if you're not going to put it into practice? So of course, there's easy ways to put into practice, like the example I used earlier of testing it that morning, seeing the results that afternoon, and then knowing what you want to send out the next day or something like that. But over time, you can also begin to accumulate data from your multiple emails and analyze it to paint a bigger picture of what engages your audience and what gets them to act. And you might learn that you need to change your overall strategy based on the data. So don't let that data die. Make sure that you use that data. Make sure you analyze it with a purpose. And that goes back to having your testing calendar, because if it's on your calendar that you're gonna review your data, you know the importance of it. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. And I am 1 minute behind, but yay. Are there any questions as we start to close out? Any questions about the information that we shared today? Oh, hey, Monica. Hey, Tamika. I couldn't see all of y'all earlier.
That's a great job. Great information. Thank you.
Glad to hear it.
This was awesome. I learned so much from this, and I've been on other trainings about emails. This was very thorough, Magali. Bravo.
Glad to hear it. I'm glad that you all found it useful. We have your email addresses from registering, so just particularly as it relates to this, you will receive all this information at the end of the month. So if there aren't any other questions, hopefully you can join us next. Yes, I'm sorry.
Magali, I'm not sure. I don't see my camera, so I'm not sure if it's working or not. If you see me, hi. If you don't, it's black.
We can't see you, but it's okay.
Oh, yeah, I have to fix that up. First time in a while that this happens, or it hasn't happened ever before. But sorry, I haven't been able to attend the other two. You mentioned earlier that somehow we can have access to session number 1 and session number 2. How do we request access to that, or is it just available in the Hustle website?
So we will email it all at the end of the month, but also if you don't want to wait until the end of the month, you are welcome to visit the Hustle Facebook page, and they're all there under our videos. Every single session we've ever done since the pandemic started is on our videos on the Hustle Facebook page, and that's just Hustle Winston-Salem.
Okay, and so one more question. I've been attending more and more meetings because I'm really I'm going to start a podcast in Spanish for financial independence and financial literacy. The name is going to be De Peso a Peso. I'm very excited about the idea. I'm taking some training on the podcast area, but that's Hustle help somehow, because I want to have on the side, as people listen to the program, then if someone wants to come to me for the financial coach portion, like hands, like one-on-one, I don't know how to start that business. I just have the idea, and I know there's a lot of people doing like financial literacy, but I want to know more who's doing it in Winston-Salem, who will be competing with. But of course, my aim will be helping the Hispanic community. So most of my training will be done in Spanish, unless it's requested in English, and they're okay with my accent.
Let me chime in there, and if I can, Magdalene, and say that number one, Lorena, thanks for joining us. Number two, we want to arrange for you to meet with one of our business mentors to help you with the business setup. And also we want to connect you with Jody Lohman, who's one of the business librarians at the Forsyth County Public Library, who has a session every month called Business Info to Go. So you can find out some of those very things that you asked. And even in between the session that she offers, she's available every day. And so we can give you her number, or actually, let me tell you where to find her number. Go to forsythtech.edu/SBC. And if you click on the button that says counseling and mentoring, you'll see the list of all of the mentors that you can arrange a meeting with. Again, her name is Jody Lohman, and you'll find her phone number. She likes phone calls.
Okay.
I don't. So. She likes phone calls, so feel free to contact her.
Wonderful. What's her last name?
Lohman. Pronounced Lohman.
Okay. And I know I've been receiving the emails from Forsyth Tech Small Business Center, and it says come and talk to one of the counselors. But I went through the list, not sure where to start. Is there a way to get like an overview of the counseling and go from there? Like someone, like a resource of not training, but initial orientation, like how to start with the Forsyth Tech Business Center, Small Business Center.
As a matter of fact, yes. In our website, and you've been to our website, there are descriptions of all of the different things that we do, whether we're talking about business mentoring, helping to build a business community, educational events, all that's in there. However, you can also get an orientation. One of the things that's in there is our YouTube channel. And there's more than 100 videos that talk about working with the Small Business Center.
Okay, wonderful. I'll be busy learning more.
But yeah, the best next step is to make an appointment with one of our mentors for next week.
Okay, wonderful. I'll do that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Alan.
Sure.
And if there's anything else you need, Lorena, you can always email us. We have received all of your emails. So I think we've responded to everything. If we haven't, just let me know. But we're happy to answer any of questions that you have, okay?
Yeah, and I think last time I talked to you, I said I'm gonna reach out to you. So you are in my to-call person to reach out. I'll probably start with an email.
Okay, no problem at all.
Okay, thanks, Magali.
Yeah, were there any other questions for us today?
Just compliments.
Yes, that's right. Great as usual. And I'll see you next week.
All right.
Can you hear me? Or you hear my clock?
Yep, we hear you and your clock. All right, great.
Information. Thank you so much.
No
Thank
problem
you so
at all.
much.
We'll
Keep up the
so
great
much.
job. Thank
We'll
you.
close out. All right, bye everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Love you here, Magali.
Thank you.
You know, I've been growing mine out. I mean.